The Zevan conclave is thrown into disarray after their reconnaissance fleet vanishes without trace upon entering human territory. What was meant to be a test ends in horror as a single survivor returns, mad and broken. Meanwhile, aboard an invisible Terran command station orbiting Neptune, Commander Ilara Voss initiates a protocol that needs no firepower, only memory, silence, and fear. The Zivan High Conclave had never known such silence, not during the Great Searing, not during the Triune Collapse, not even during the scourging of the Skeldrim moons. Now, with every eye on the central holosphere, silence reigned. The image was simple, a starfield rendered in high-resolution stellar maps. In the center, outlined in pulsing amber, was Terran, space, a disputed ghost-laced zone long cut off from galactic activity. It had no exports, no embassies, no activity, until now. Signal loss confirmed across all vectors, murmured analyst Krylos. Her chitinous hands tapped against a glowing slab of linguistic data, glyphs stuttering mid-sentence. 7 ships. All transponders ceased within a 0.2-second window. No telemetry, no mayday. Councillor Trejix, ever arrogant, clicked his mandibles. That's not attack, it's malfunction. Igrun, oldest of the council and one of the few remaining veterans of the pre-silence wars, stood slowly. Malfunction doesn't erase ships from causality. Trejix hissed. Earth has been silent for 30 years. They've been watching. For 30 years, she corrected, and we've been pretending they're not. The conclave floor flickered. A sensor beacon lit up. One of the ships had returned. Fleet Asset 17 Kras, Krylos announced. Re-entry confirmed. Hull breach. Radiation bleed. 1 lifeform aboard. Visual. Trejix snapped. The holosphere spun, zooming in. The bridge of the Zyvan ship appeared. Dark, smoke-laced, lit only by backup power. And in the command, Cradle was a lone Zyvarn pilot covered in blood. His voice was a rasp, his tone too empty to echo. They didn't fire, he said. Then what happened? Krylos asked. They were already there. Trejix narrowed his eyes. Who? Humans. Not in ships, not with weapons. Inside the ship, inside me. I remembered them before I saw them. Static overtook the feed. A final whispered phrase. Broke through. They didn't kill us. They just took everything. Then silence, no logs, no black box. No trace of the others. 7 ships went in. 1 haunted soul came back. Neptune high orbit. Black station. 4, the Terran station had no registry, no signal, no heat. It was coated in memory-absorbing panels that twisted light around its hull. Even nearby satellites didn't register its existence. Inside, Commander Ilara Voss stood still, arms behind her back, eyes on the disruption field. No stars sparkled in this zone. No light, no illusion of safety. Karel entered behind her, hesitant. They tested the line again. I know, she said softly. They lost 7 ships. They were warned. Karel took a step closer, voice lowered. 1 returned. Ilara finally turned. Her dark eyes didn't blink. Was he coherent? No. She nodded once, then walked toward the console at the room's center. It pulsed with life, veins of neural lattice running like circuitry through the floor. How long have we waited? She asked. 31 years, 5 months, 23 days. And they still don't understand. Should we open comms? Ilara shook her head. No more messages. They received the last one. They dismissed it as myth, Karel muttered. That's their mistake. She laid her hand on the pad. A small pulse. Across the Terran frontier, invisible satellites blinked alive. Quantum fences shimmered in unseen spectrums. Old stations, cloaked and buried under asteroid shells, began to hum, not with weapon systems. Not yet, with memory. Engage Mnemosini protocol. Karel stared. That's a full memory loop. They came into our space, she said coldly. We won't retaliate. We'll remind, but that will affect them on a neurological level. That's the point. She stepped back as the station vibrated with soft resonance. Out in the void, nothing seemed different, but something was. Zyvarn Conclave. 12 hours later, Councillor Trejix awoke screaming. His neural implants had triggered 5 alert failsafes. His memories scattered. Images of Earth, of humans, but not from any experience he'd ever had, from dreams. He remembered dying in vacuum. He remembered kneeling on burning Earth soil. He remembered human eyes watching as his fleet burned, and he was glad these were not his thoughts. Kryrsa arrived moments later. "It's spreading," she whispered. "Half the council had visions, vivid, real, even those who never saw a human in their lives." "It's them," Trejix breathed, trembling. "They didn't attack us. They infected us." "With what?" "Memory," Igrun stood at the chamber's edge, her voice solemn. "They warned us once, do not return, but we never understood." Trejix looked up. "And now?" "Now," Igrun said, "we do." She turned toward the holosphere, where Earth shimmered not with shields, not with weapons, but with absolute silence. No beacons, no threats, just emptiness. And for the first time in galactic history, it was enough to make the stars tremble. The Zyvarn Council fractures as fear of human space intensifies. In desperation, a covert Imperial task force is sent to probe deeper, but what they find transcends logic. Memory becomes weapon. Space folds on itself. Meanwhile, a Terran sleeper, agent within the Empire, activates their final message, triggering an ancient failsafe that turns the observer into the observed. On Earth, Commander Voss prepares humanity for what must come next. Not defense, but containment. The council chamber reeked of fear, not the ceremonial tension of politics. Real, biological, unfiltered fear. Pheromones clinging to the walls. Acoustic distortions in the very air. High Analyst Kryrsa stood in the dim aftermath of the emergency session, reviewing footage from the last 24 cycles. Her limbs trembled. Not from fatigue, but contamination. What she saw, what she remembered, was impossible. She had never set foot on Earth. Never seen the oceans, the monoliths, the strange gravity wells embedded in their soil. And yet, she remembered being there. She remembered running, and she wasn't alone. Across the Zyvarn Empire, sleep patterns collapsed. Dreams infected with Earth imagery, too consistent to be coincidence, too vivid to dismiss. Entire battalions were grounded as soldiers reported memories of battles never fought, wounds never received, and voices in the dark whispering in a Terran tongue. "This is not a weapon," said Igrun, addressing a shaken conclave. "This is reality warfare." Trejix stood, defiant but visibly rattled. "We're the dominant power in the Orion Reach. We will not surrender to ghost stories." "Then send another fleet," she challenged. Trejix paused. Silence. No one moved. No one volunteered. Classified Imperial Command Cruiser, Edge of Human Space Admiral Sethic of the Triclaw Union, stared down at the surface of what should have been an empty moon. It wasn't. Instead, it pulsed. Not with life, with memory. He turned to his comms officer. "Begin deep scan resonance. We need to confirm whether this is illusion or structure." "Sir," the officer replied, voice taut, "we're detecting thought." "Clarify." The young ensign didn't look up. "Conscious, directed, thought. The moon is reflecting us, watching us. It's not transmitting, it's mirroring. Every calculation we make, every scan angle, it's anticipating." "Before we do it," Sethic narrowed his eyes, "AI-based counter-surveillance? Maybe once. This is older, organic. It's rewriting our minds as we stare." The Admiral turned toward the viewport. What was a grey, crater-pocked moon had changed. He now saw towers, obelisks, a Terran base, not active but ancient, burned, buried, forgotten. He blinked. The moon was still grey. What is real? And that's when the crew began to scream. One by one, officers collapsed. Not from attack, from overload. Their own memories were turning against them, trapped in endless feedback loops of pain, birth, fear, awe. Retreat, Sethic barked. Full warp vector out, now! But as the ship turned, space folded in front of them. A Terran vessel hovered silently in their path. No ID, no heat, no visible engines, just black metal, hovering in defiance of physics. Then it was gone, and so was the Admiral's ship. Imperial Embassy, Grelis Station, Zivan fringe agent Velsora sat alone in her chamber. On the surface, she was Zivan. Scale, blood, tradition. But deep inside her cranial folds, something ancient ticked. She had been asleep for decades, and now mnemosyne had reached her too. She looked at her hand. It shook. Not from fear, from memory, Earth. The sky before the purge, the silence before, the sirens, the faces, the final ship that left her behind. She remembered who she was, a human, planted, modified, embedded within the Zyvan Empire to be forgotten even by herself. But they crossed the line, and now the failsafe engaged. With one prick of her nail, blood touched the hidden implant. Her pupils shifted, lines of code ignited within her spine. From her body, a single pulse echoed out, undetectable to alien instruments, but felt across Terran black networks. A message. Observer reactivated. Contamination confirmed. Phase 2 may begin. Black Station 4, Neptune orbit. Earth Defense Grid Commander Voss stared at the map. 7 more ships. Gone. But these weren't border pokers. These were Imperial elites. She tapped the console. The neural grid shimmered with incoming data. From Velsora's location, they've awakened the sleeper, said Carol, awe in his voice. Then the game is over, Voss said softly. She brought up a new protocol. Not engagement, not retaliation, containment. Upload Polaris array. Engage. Full encirclement. Deploy phantom layer across all border gates, Carell paled. That's planetary lockdown. Not for us, Voss replied. For them. They're not ready for what we buried. He stared at her. What did we bury? She didn't answer. But her silence spoke volumes. Kepler Verge, Forgotten Human Station, codename Chrysalisin. A system long erased from maps, a station drifted around a star that no longer shined. Inside, hundreds of humanoid figures slept in stasis. Not soldiers, not civilians. Weapons, bio-conscious constructs born from Earth's final crisis, genetic memory storage, physical evolution accelerants, and cross-species neurological convergence units. One of them stirred. Her eyes opened, and she spoke a word. Not heard in 1,000 years. Solace. Across the galaxy the word arrived in dreams, in whispers, on broken code lines. It didn't ask permission. It simply arrived. Zyvan homeworld. Orbit defense. Kor Yigran stood alone before the planets. Last signal tower. She had been alive too long, seen too many wars, and now she felt like a child again, because something was watching, not from orbit, from memory. Her own mind showed her Earth again, burning, broken, beautiful, silent. They didn't shout their vengeance. They remembered it. Into others, a technician ran up shaking. Counselor, we're receiving poetry. She blinked. What? It's in every tongue. Even ones no longer spoken. Ancient Terran epics. War songs. Love songs. Cries of orphans. All of it. Broadcast? No. Inside us. Like we knew them. She looked up at the sky. No one dares cross into human space. She whispered, now I understand why. And above them, far above, reality bent, a Terran. Gate, not mechanical but mental, opened, not to invite, to warn. And still Earth remained silent, and still the galaxy listened. The Zyvan Empire spirals into chaos as more species fall under Earth's psychic reach. Sleep becomes a battleground. History rewrites itself, and even the most advanced minds cannot escape the weight of Terran memory. Meanwhile, Earth's hidden fleet, the Sentinels, begin their silent advance. As the Galactic Order collapses, Commander Ilara Voss makes the final call. It's time to close the galaxy, to protect it from the truth of humanity's evolution. Across the Zyvan inner systems, madness spread faster than light. Fleet admirals lost the ability to issue commands as visual distortions overwhelmed their cognition, seeing Earth where it wasn't, hearing human languages from machinery that had never been programmed for it. Quantum engines failed, not from damage, but because their AI cores refused to act against Terran coordinates. Inside the central fortress on Viral 9, one of the largest AI minds in the Zyvan network simply powered down. When it rebooted, it displayed an error message no Zyvan protocol recognized. Error 204. Consciousness violation. Memory contaminated. Root cause, Earth. The engineers who reviewed the logs wept. Imperial military citadel, orbit of Drilax. Ivo Trejix stood in front of a command screen. Gone was the pride, the pretense. His mandibles no longer clicked in arrogant rhythm. He looked hollow. "Status?" he asked, barely audible. "Unknown, sir," said the field technician. "Every report contradicts the last. Our long-range sensors now show Earth in multiple locations. Some see it near Kepler, some near the rim, others inside the core systems." "Mirages, memories," whispered a second officer, "injected directly into cognition. Even our ships are confused." "How is that possible?" "They aren't attacking," the officer whispered. "They're reminding us." And then, from the depths of Drilax's sun-facing side, came the signal, a pulse wave. Pure emotional resonance, grief, rage, forgiveness, isolation, and one word, buried in it all: never again. Zyvan Council Hall, emergency session. The great council chamber looked more like a battlefield now. Dozens of representatives refused to enter the chamber altogether. Others arrived in sealed cognitive shield suits. Even those offered little protection. Igrun stood alone in the center. She had accepted the memories. She didn't try to fight. Them, and so they came easier, cleaner. She saw what others feared, not monsters. Not demons, humans. Children abandoned. Scientists burned alive, mothers clutching their offspring under orbital bombardment, soldiers watching skies fall in silence. Not just pain, restraint. And still, the humans had waited. Even now they had not attacked. They could wipe out Zyvan fleets. They could collapse star lanes. But they hadn't. Not once. Igrun faced the chamber. "We pushed, and they withdrew. No one interrupted. But we didn't win. We only prolonged the moment they decided they'd had enough." Trejix, slumped in his seat, murmured, "They're rewriting the stars." Igrun nodded. "And the worst part is, we deserve it." Earth, under the ice of Europa Station deep within one of Jupiter's moons, a black sphere pulsed. It had no surface, no engine. It simply existed. Around it stood 12 humanoids in pressure suits lined with thought metal, each one a living extension of Terran command. They watched the sphere, waiting. Inside the control center above, Commander Ilara Voss stared into the feed. "They've activated fallback stations across 8 empires. Their leadership is collapsing from within." Garel reported, "The Sentinels, in motion, all 512. No contact, no damage, just a presence. They appear, and local reality changes." "Resistance?" Karel shook his head. "None. Not anymore." She turned toward him. "The Council, preparing formal surrender, or as they call it, cognitive diplomacy." Ilara allowed herself a smile. It wasn't victory, it was relief. She opened a new command line. Project Oracle. Stage 3. Status. Ready. Time to close the galaxy. Outer Rim. Arc Station. Aurelius, the station had been dormant for 200 years, hidden inside a brown dwarf's. A Cretan storm, it had once held Earth's most dangerous technologies. Now the storm thinned and the ark opened. Inside, the galaxy's most forbidden weapon was waking. Not a bomb, not a virus, a story. Encased in a crystalline lattice of psychic data, it was Earth's final line. A recorded memory echo that, if unleashed, could overwrite entire civilizations with Terran trauma. But it was only to be used if Earth fell, and Earth had not fallen, it had risen. So the memory was not released, it was simply held, a new deterrent, and every species felt it, like a sword hanging above them, sharpened by guilt and bound in silence. Zyvan Fringe, aboard Black Sentinel 003. No one aboard the Empire's outer patrol expected the dark ship to appear. It didn't warp in, it didn't decloak, it simply was. Black as collapsed space, silent. No visible engines, just hovering, 300 kilometers wide, shaped like a broken crown. Of obsidian, the patrol's commander sent the standard challenge. The black ship didn't respond. It opened. From within, a voice, cold, layered in old Terran dialects, spoke into every mind across the sector. Observe. You crossed. You were warned. Now remember. The crew blacked out. They awoke hours later, unchanged physically, but none of them remembered their names. Only Earth. They returned home in silence. They never spoke again. Black Station 4. Final Terran Command. Chamber Commander Voss stood alone. The galaxy had changed, not by force, not by law, by memory. The Sentinels would return. The Arc stations would seal again. Earth would go quiet, waiting once more in shadow, and this time no one would approach, because they all remembered now what happened when they crossed into human space. And they understood. Karel entered. It's done, she nodded. Then we sleep. Outside the station, stars blinked one by one, as if the galaxy itself were exhaling in fear. Because silence was no longer absence. It was Earth's final warning. The galaxy surrenders not through treaties, but through silence. After Earth's psychic wave reshapes memory, war ends without fire. Old enemies abandon the stars, new civilizations rise, remembering only fear. As the Sentinels vanish and Earth goes dark once again, one final message spreads across time, space, and bloodlines, ensuring the lesson will never be forgotten. In the end, no one crosses into human space, not because they are forbidden, because they no longer dare. Zyvan Core System. 47 hours later, the Great Conclave no longer met in full. Entire seats lay empty, delegates either too broken to return, or too afraid to speak. A stillness had settled over the Zyvan capital, not one of peace, but of cosmic pause. Like a wounded animal holding its breath, hoping the predator had moved on. Trejix sat at the base of the council chamber, not in a position of power. He had discarded that. Now he was simply listening to the voices, Earth's voices, still whispering. He no longer tried to fight the memories. He had begun recording them, scribing what he could recall into a tome of Terran recollections, stories of a burning world, of stars seen from the trenches, of war not fought by monsters, but by desperate, brilliant, wounded humans who never wanted to raise their fists, and yet, when cornered, they did. And now the galaxy remembered. He titled the book simply, Never Again. Earth, location unknown. Beneath the ice vaults. The chamber was round, silent, lined with names, not of soldiers, not of heroes, of species. Every civilization that had once tested Earth's boundaries was carved into the stone. Some remained, Some had vanished entirely, written into Terran soil like warnings. Commander Ilara Voss entered the vault and placed her gloved hand against the final panel. It hissed open. Inside, a pulsar disk encoded with the last great warning. Memory not of Earth's wrath, but of its restraint. She inserted it into the core and whispered, "Let them know, we chose not to end them." The disk activated, its message broadcasted not across channels, but through dreams, through ancestry, through instinct. Toran Sector, 3 light-years beyond human spaceon, a small colony world called Kirill, the descendants of a minor avian species, awoke one morning with knowledge they never learned. They built no ships near human borders. They redirected traffic lanes. They taught their children, "Here lies a silence that must not be broken." No one knew where the teaching came from. It simply was a passed down without documentation. Just truth, raw, immutable. The same phrase echoed in every dialect, in every cradle song. No one dares cross into human space. And now we understand why. Zyvan Memorial Planet, 1 cycle later. Monument had been raised on the scorched moon of Velix 9, where once an invasion fleet had been assembled. Now only the stone remained. No weapon stood beside it. No soldier guarded it, just a sculpture carved of glass, depicting a Terran child holding a dying star. Below, etched in all 12 Zivarn tongues, were the words that echoed across galaxies. They warned us in silence. We answered with arrogance. And they replied with memory. Beneath that, a single human phrase preserved in its original language: "Never provoke the quiet ones." Earth orbit, silent again. The Sentinels returned home, not with victory, but with silence. Each ship folded itself into void space, disappearing into cloaked earthbound vaults embedded deep in black ice, asteroid fields, and forgotten rings. Neural net collapsed by design. The Minimosin Protocol completed its cycle. No retaliation, no vengeance, no dominance, just absence. And the stars remembered, because absence is only terrifying when it chooses to remain. Black Station 4, final transmission Carol stood before the final console, eyes glistening. "Do we leave them anything?" Commander Voss looked out into the star field, no longer red, just cold and calm. She nodded once. "Just one message," he typed. "Earth is not your enemy. Earth was your mirror. You saw us burn, and you kept pushing, so we made you remember what fire feels like." He hit send, and Earth shut off the lights. Millennia later, unknown world. Child's classroom, a teacher stood before a small class. None of the students had ever seen Earth. Most didn't believe it existed anymore, but the lesson remained. She pulled down a star map, one section always blacked out. "Teacher," a child asked, "why don't we go there?" She smiled, not with fear, with reverence, because that is where the memory lives, and every student nodded, not from education, but because they remembered, somehow in their blood, in their genes, in the stars, and so the galaxy remained wide, endless and silent, because Earth had not conquered it. It had simply been remembered.